Hello, and thank you so much for joining me today. This is a fairly short practice. It's one that I've named ReActivate. It's actually a practice that was gifted to me by my teacher as part of my teacher training. It's originally designed to be a postnatal practice. However, I've called it ReActivate because it's this returning to movement. So we've all experienced times in our life where we've had to come back to movement, and that might bring up various different feelings in us, and it might be because of various different reasons. It might be that we're returning after pregnancy, it might be that we're returning from illness or injury, or it might simply be that you've taken some time out because you needed to rest, you've been on holiday, you've just been busy. So whatever your reason, this is a nice gentle practice. There is nothing to fear here. Go at your own pace. Grab yourself a block or something similar. If you've got a block, then fantastic. If not, maybe a book or a Tupperware pot, but something that's going to be fairly comfortable for you to use. And then when you're ready, make your way down. We're going to start laying on our backs. So just come on down into this supine bridge-like setup, placing the soles of the feet onto the earth, the knees pointing up to the ceiling. You might take one hand to the top of your neck, just where your neck meets your head, and just slide that hand up to that rounded part and place your head back down on the ground, just to honour that small lordotic curve at the back of the neck. Have a little shimmy so that you feel the back of the shoulders supported and rested. And again, honouring that other natural lordotic curve that mirrors the one in the neck towards the lower back. Instead of pressing the whole lower back down, just allow the back of the pelvis to feel supported. And welcome in some gentle energy into the feet. And just take a moment to meet yourself where you are today. So often when we're returning to movement, or sometimes just generally in life, we put this pressure on ourselves. We put this pressure on ourselves to be a certain way or do something, to be like a past version of ourselves, or maybe like somebody else. So today I'm just going to invite you to meet yourself where you are today. So just begin to notice your breath. You might soften your gaze or close your eyes down here. You might rest your hands by your side, or one hand on the belly and one hand on the heart. And just use this superpower of your breath to begin to meet yourself and welcome yourself into the practice. Where possible, just softly closing the mouth and taking that breath in and out through the nose. Our breath is this fantastic tool that does help us meet ourselves where we are. It's this communication tool from body and mind via the central nervous system. And we can actually alter our whole present moment, experience and state simply by altering our breath. And see if you can just allow those breaths to begin to fill up into the lower ribs, feeling expansion as you breathe in, and just a soft return as you breathe back out. Just take a few more of these breaths, inhaling that life force into you. Exhaling, just letting go, allowing yourself to feel supported. And then we'll welcome in some physical movement. So just reaching arms overhead, feet away from the body. You might interlace your fingers and bring your feet closer together as you pull your body into this nice full body stretch. Toes reach into the bottom of the mat, fingers reaching up overhead. Maybe having a wiggle and a shimmy if that feels good for you. Maybe just asking yourself, how am I doing today? How am I feeling right now? And take a full breath in through the nose. And just let that one go. And then we'll pick our head and arms up and just shimmy them over to the top left corner of the mat. Just allow your head and arms to release back down. And then allow the feet to follow to the bottom left-hand corner of the mat so that you create this banana-like or half crescent moon shape with your body. You might take that left hand and just gently give the right wrist a short tug, maybe cross over right ankle on top of left. Thinking about keeping the back of the shoulders rested, you might release that left ear as well. ReActivate, it's just this sense of reviving. So we're just reviving our body today. Maybe that will also impact on our mind, our emotional state. In your next inhale, think about exiting this position, uncrossing the legs, bringing the arms back. And then just simply picking head and arms back up and taking that stretch to the right. So head and hands land to that top right-hand corner of the mat. Feet will follow to the bottom right-hand corner. You might take right wrist and give that left wrist a little tug and maybe cross left ankle on top of right. And can you allow that breath to expand into the side body? Just taking one more full round of breath here. As you pick yourself back up and just return to center, sliding the feet back onto the mat. And just grabbing hold of your block. We'll come into a supported bridge. So pop that block or prop that you have underneath the pelvis. Have a shimmy around until you find that sweet spot. Bringing the feet underneath the knees if that's comfortable for you to do so. And keeping the shoulder blades, rounded part of the head supported on the ground. Just begin to welcome some energy into the feet. So now that we're welcoming that reactivation into the leg and glutes, imagine you've got roots in the soles of the feet grounding down. And as a return response, the energy is drawing up and into the legs. You might begin to add in some sensory touch. If you feel comfortable to do so, just reconnecting this mind-body connection. Also, often we feel uncomfortable maybe to feel or look at our own body. And that is totally valid, but sometimes it helps just to begin to welcome that reconnection. So just taking the hands where you feel comfortable, maybe around that pelvic bowl, maybe lower belly, maybe across the hips and thighs. Just to re-establish and reactivate this relationship with ourselves and this body that really does do so much for us in every single moment. Okay, you might just rest the hands on the pelvis, maybe bringing fingers into the hip creases where the hip meets the thigh. And we'll add in some psoas marches, so welcome some hip flexion. Left knee will come on top of left hip. We'll lift left foot up. We'll march that back down. And then right knee will come on top of right hip, so hip flexion. Let's do that again. So we're pulling that left knee on top of left hip, and we'll feel those fingers swallowed as the thigh, the femur comes closer towards the hip, and right lifts and lowers. Let's just do that a couple more times. Hip flexion left and right, like you're marching these big giant steps. Just take one more round. So one full round is a left leg march, a right leg march, replacing feet back down, and now we'll add on. So left knee will march. We'll pull that knee in towards us without lifting the sit bones or tailbone. Right leg will march. And then we'll add in a bridge hover. So just lifting the pelvis up a couple of inches off that block, re-establishing that connection, grounding down into the feet, and allow the pelvis to roll backwards, so posteriorly. It's like the tailbone is going up a hill or a slope towards the knees. And you might just use your fingers to tap, tap, tap the side of the glutes and begin to feel that reactivation, that energy. And then tap the pelvis back down. Let's repeat that again. So left leg marches, right leg marches, 2 feet land. As we press into the feet, we use the glutes to lift the pelvis. Tailbone lifts towards the knees, and you might get this sensation without physically moving your feet that the heels are pulling back towards your body. Do you feel that? Lower the pelvis. 3 more. Left leg, right leg, pressing down with energy. Tailbone lifts towards knees and hover and lower. Good. Keep that going. You might begin to feel that warmth again, that reactivation in the body, particularly the lower body. And continue with your breathing in and out through the nose where possible. That's it. Good. One more. Right leg marches, and then we take that bridge hover. Feel the activation. You might get this organization of the ribs drawing in towards one another, the pubis coming towards the belly button. And then just slide that block from underneath you as you curl the spine all the way down, down, down. Allow the back of the pelvis, the sacrum, that's that fused section at the bottom of the spine, just to land and feel supported again. Take a moment to re-establish your breath. We're really going to perhaps use our breath as this anchor point and this focus in the practice today, just to help you to reactivate and reconnect with yourself. So we're going to move now into a little bit of core work, and I'll invite you to bring hands behind the skull. Now this might simply be just a memory of core sit-up, particularly if this is a postnatal practice for you. So it's just getting that sensation and reawakening that mind-body connection, more of a contraction than a full flexion. You might bring your elbows in a little closer, and we're going to work with the breath just to begin with. So I invite you to take one of those full inhales in through the nose. Feel the ribs expand, and then feel that contraction as though you were physically going to flex and lift up off the shoulder blades without physically moving. And then as you exhale, it's just a softness back to neutral. It's not a forceful exhale. Let's repeat that. So pressing down into the feet. Deep inhale, use that diaphragm, ribs expand. And then feel that contraction, this sense of organization. You might imagine in your mind the four corners of your abdomen pulling in towards the belly button and down towards the spine. And then exhale, just return into that softness. Let's have 3 more rounds of those. So deep inhale, feeling that contraction, that memory of that sit up. You might choose to lift up off the shoulder blades and feel that slight contraction. And then exhale, it's a softening, a returning. 2 more of those. Organization is the sensation that we're getting here in the abdomen. Still grounding down into the feet, keeping that chin nice and neutral. And just take 1 more round of this. Inhaling, full breath in. Getting that sense of organization, that slight contraction in the abdomen. And then exhale and return to neutral. How do you feel after that? Maybe just check in with yourself. You might use your hands to smooth over the belly just to really reaffirm that sensory connection, that mind-body memory that we're reawakening. And then we'll move on into a sense of an oblique memory sit-up. So keeping those hands interlaced behind the skull. This time it's taking opposite elbow towards opposite knee. And again, you don't need to physically lift up. We're just re-establishing and reconnecting. So take that deep breath in. As you exhale, lifting right shoulder. Keep that left shoulder blade planted on the ground, and right elbow is going to laser point as though you've got a laser pen in the elbow towards outer left knee. Weighing the head back into the hands, and then inhale, return. Let's repeat that again, same side. Deep breath in. Exhale, lifting up off right shoulder. Left elbow lasering towards outer left knee. Inhale and lower. Good, a couple more. Exhale, lift up off that right shoulder blade. Get that sensation of containment and organization in the trunk. Inhale and lower. And last one on this side, deep breath in. Exhale, lift up off that right shoulder blade. That's it, you're doing great. Keep weighing the weight of the head back into the hands, pressing down into the feet. Inhale and lower. You might just windscreen wipe those knees from side to side. Take any movement that just feels right for you right now. And then we'll repeat that on the left side. So nice and simple. Feet underneath knees. This time left elbow towards outer right knee. So take that deep breath in. Find that sense of contraction as you exhale. Lifting up off of left shoulder blade, keep those feet planted. Left elbow laser focused outer right knee. Inhale and lower. Good, 3 more. Exhale, lift up. Get that sense of containment in the body. Inhale and lower. You're halfway. Exhale, lift up off that shoulder blade. Can keep that right shoulder supported. Inhale and lower, that's it. This is your last one. Exhale, lift up, laser focus, left elbow to outer right knee. Keep that energy in the feet, rooting down, and inhale and lower. Allow those elbows to come out wide. You might sway the knees or just take any other movement that feels right for you. You might hug the knees in and take a little circle here. And just really congratulate yourself and honour yourself for showing up today, for the energy and effort. And maybe just connect with what result you're hoping to get from this practice today. Why have you chosen to return now? Why is this moment special to you? When you're ready, just make your way up. You might roll over onto one side or rock up and down the spine. and we will meet in mountain pose. So you come into the top of your mat. You might take those feet roughly hip distance apart, perhaps a little wider or maybe closer together, depending on what feels stable for you. I like to re-establish that connection with the lower body so that I really feel stable here. And a nice way to feel that sensation of the legs reactivating is grounding down into the feet, and imagine that you're smoothing that portion of your mat in between the feet. So it's this sensation of dragging the feet away from one another, or maybe a sensation of scrunching the mat up towards one another. So you might just have a moment of playing with that and noticing what feels right in your body and where you feel most stable and active. Just take a moment to take one hand to the back of the skull, one hand to the back of the pelvis, weighing your weight back in towards the heels and just stacking skull on top of your shoulders, on top of the pelvis. Again, it's that sensation of organisation in the ribs, in the trunk of the body. And I just invite you to close your eyes here or soften your gaze and just reconnect with that breath. Take a few moments, as many as you need. I am learning through this all how to stand tall, but forgiving myself when I shrink a little from the heavy weight on my shoulders. It is okay to acknowledge that things are hard to hold sometimes, while also recognizing I have the strength in me to keep going. Just allow those words to wash over you as you take this moment to reconnect, to reactivate. And then when you feel called to, just gently blinking the eyes back open. Just take a full round of breath, feel the ribs expand, and allow that one just to go out through the nose. And we'll just re-establish the hip hinge movement. So bringing your fingers to those hip creases again. We're going to have our feet tracking forwards and feeling our ACY point, so those bony landmarks of the pelvis that we often call our hip bone. Just bring your hands to those and feel those shining forward like they're headlights on a car. We're going to send our tailbone back as though it's got a torch shining towards the wall behind you. So it's a hip hinge mechanism where we're just sending that tailbone back, lowering the chest so it's parallel with the ground. Back of the neck long, grounding into the feet and using our glutes to lift the body back up in one piece. So I quite like to bring my fingers in that hip crease as I fold halfway. My fingers are swallowed and then lifting back up. So let's just try that a couple more times, grounding into the feet, keeping that spine neutral as you lower halfway. You can keep a soft bend in the knees and lift. Let's do that one more time. Hip hinge, tailbone shines back. We keep that sense of connection with the ground and we use our hips, our glutes to lift us back up. Let's do that one more time, but focusing on the spine now. So take one hand to the back of the skull, one hand to the back of the pelvis. We're keeping our spine neutral, pressing head into hand. Find that hip flexion again. Tailbone shines back behind you. Chest is lifted. Our gaze is down, maybe just beyond the top of our mat. Chin nice and neutral rather than poking out. And you'll feel that from the length in the back of the neck. Well done. Release the hands. Bring your hands down to the ground. So bend your knees as much as you need to make your way down. And we'll step back into a quadruped tabletop position. 2 hands land, 2 knees. Just establish your connection with the surface beneath you. Shoulders on top of wrists, knees underneath hips. Keeping an activation at the front of the neck, the throat, lifting the skull in line with the spine. And now we'll work simply at the hip. So we're going to start with hip extension. We'll extend that left leg behind us. Big toe, ball of big toe will land on the mat behind you. We're going to lift and pulse that left leg, but we're going to try and keep the spine as neutral as we can. So 10 pulses, working just from the hip. That left leg back down. Good. Notice if you're tilting to one side, or as you lift, if the spine is arching, just bring that leg lower. We'll honour that neutrality of the spine. Well done, halfway. Keeping the skull lifted, strong straight arms. 3, 2, 1. You might bend into that knee and draw some big hip circles. Maybe a couple in one direction, a couple in the other. And then we'll take that same movement on the opposite side. So extending right leg behind you. Ball of big toe connects with the mat. Spine neutral, skull lifted as we lift and pulse. Again, notice if you're arching through the spine. Take that pulse a little lower. We will not compromise the spine for height. Good, halfway, 5 more. 3, 2, and 1. Well done. Lower 2 knees. We're going to come into a supported plank. So you might stay in tabletop, or you might just walk those knees a little further back. You might keep toes tucked. Keep your shoulders on top of your wrists, glutes active, and we're going to come into a wide press up position. So you might take your hands a little bit wider, and you might allow the elbows to flare out as you lower the chest down and then press back up. Glutes firm. We'll do that one more time, allowing those elbows to come out, out, out as you lower down in one piece. Allow the belly to rest, untuck the toes. Coming into a supported cobra, so bringing fingertips either side of the temples, peeling the chest up. Glutes are active. You might press down into the tops of the feet. Feeling the scapula, the shoulder blades draw towards one another as though they're clipping towards the spine. Deep breath. On your next exhale, lower yourself back down. Bring your hands either side of your chest. You might press back into tabletop or a child's pose, or maybe simply lifting up into your first downward facing dog. It might be quite nice to walk the feet in a little closer to the hands here and find that hip flexion. So that sense of bringing your belly closer towards your thighs, but we're keeping the ribs organised again here. They're drawing towards one another. Nice strong straight arms press the ground away. So it's not a press back, it's a press up and away. Feel the shoulders and shoulder blades glide up towards the ears. We'll keep our ears roughly in between our arms and gaze in between the legs. You might have bent knees here. You might have heels lifted. And just take a few rounds of breath. You might add in some movement if you feel any stickiness. Maybe lifting and lowering heels. Maybe pedaling one heel and the other. Well done. Returning to a stillness as you walk your hands back towards your feet. Flex into the hips, allow the bum to sink down, and we'll meet in a halfway lift. So sliding the hands up the legs until you feel a lengthening through the spine. It's as though the spine is pulling out from the pelvis. You might use your hands to gently press into the legs. Feet are grounding, keeping that energy at all times. Chin neutral, back of the neck long. And then on an inhale, lift yourself all the way back up. So we're going to come into some stag twists to make our way back up to the top of the mat. There's a few options for you. Again, we're going to find that energy through the feet, hip bones, pelvic points pointing forwards. Option 1 is coming up onto the ball of the toe. Option 2, we hover the foot. Option 3, we bring knee in line with hip. So let's shift our weight into the right foot, grounding down, finding a point of focus as we choose our balance option. Then goalpost the arms, elbows either side of the shoulders, and we're going to take a twist towards that front knee. Lower left leg, bring the body back to center, and then we'll do the same on the right side. Right leg lifts, or come onto the ball of the toe. We twist the body towards that right knee, step, center. So taking roughly 3 of these, just showing you on the ball of the foot. Good. Making your way all the way up to the top. Well done. Re-establish yourself in mountain pose. Let's repeat that sequence we've just done. Hopefully the mind is starting to warm up a little bit and you'll start to feel in your body that you know where you're going. So let's find that hip hinge. You might take fingers to hip creases, tailbone shoots back behind you. Release the hands, halfway lift. Lower yourself down, coming into a tabletop position. 2 hands, 2 knees, shoulders on top of wrists, knees underneath hips, where we'll move into those hip extension kicks. So left leg extends behind you. You might use a hand to check if the pelvis is in its neutral position, or maybe you've shifted to one side or lifted the pelvis up. So just establish that neutral before we get going. There's no rush. And then 10 kicks up and down, keeping that spine strong and neutral, skull lifted. I know this is quite energizing. Halfway. 3, 2, and 1. You might take a couple of circles with that left knee, and then lower left knee under left hip, right leg extends. Are you ready? Strong straight arms, keeping you supported. 10 kicks, being mindful not to arch through the spine. Good, 5 more. Keeping that containment at the core. And last one, you might bend into that knee and take a couple of circles. Release that right knee down. Coming into our modified plank, so shuffling knees back, shoulders on top of wrists, firm glutes. Keep a containment in the abdomen as you lower down and press back up. Well done. This time lowering all the way down in one piece. Elbows might come out wide as you lower down to belly. Taking those fingers either side of the temples. Glutes firm as you peel the chest up. Clip those shoulder blades back. Try and breathe here. One more breath. And lower. Hands come either side of the chest. Tucking toes to find our way into downward facing dog. You might press back into child's or tabletop to lift the pelvis. Finding that solid, stable stance. So maybe walking feet in closer towards the hands. Strong, straight arms, press the ground away. Honoring that neutral spine here. You might simply hold and reconnect with your breath. Maybe reconnect with the outcome that you were hoping to get from today's practice. Maybe asking yourself what this practice will do for you. How will it benefit you and your life? How will it benefit the others in your life? Well done. On your next exhale, just landing those knees back down. You might sit back and just give the wrists a little roll out. You have done amazing. I hope you've enjoyed returning and reactivating your body. We'll just finish off with the same bridge work that we started with at the beginning of the practice. So just grabbing that block and supporting the back of the pelvis as we come on down. Feet land underneath knees, back of the skull, shoulder blades and pelvis are supported. You might bring hands to the ACY points, those bony landmarks at the front of the pelvis. You might allow fingers to slide down to those hip creases as we march left, right, pressing into the feet, hovering the pelvis, and lower. Just a few more, left, right, hovering, not rushing, angling tailbone up towards the knees, reorganizing at our center. Good, keep that going. Just be mindful that the chin's not creeping up to the sky. Often it likes to do that. Well done, this is your last one. Taking that bridge hover, finding that energy in the feet, allowing it to travel up the legs, into the glutes, tailbone sloping towards knees. That sensation of gliding the heels back towards your body. Just sliding that block out from underneath you and allow the spine to curl down, down, down. And relax. Just take any final movement that your body's calling for. You might like to hug the knees in and draw some nice big circles as though you've got a pencil or a paintbrush and you're drawing on the ceiling. Taking those circles in the other direction. You might hug the knees in and take a gentle rock from side to side. And when you feel called to, making your way into your relaxation. That might mean a traditional Shavasana where you allow your whole body to feel supported. You might allow the feet to flop out to the corners of the mat, your hands to rest down by your side, or maybe one hand on the heart, one hand on the belly. You might find it nice to keep the knees bent, feeling that energy through the feet. Or perhaps you even roll over onto one side. Grab yourself anything you need to make yourself feel cozy and comfortable. Any blankets, cushions. And when you feel ready, you might soften your gaze or close your eyes down. Feeling your body supported by the earth beneath you. And just noticing if there's anywhere that you might still be gripping on or holding on to tension. And can you allow the focus of the breath to communicate to the body that it's safe to soften. Can you feel the shoulders relax? Perhaps you need to unclench the jaw and the teeth. cheeks soften. Outer edges of your eyes. Brow. And forehead smooths. Taking this moment to honor yourself and how you feel right now. Often this returning to anything, but particularly movement, can spark up a fear within us. And Deborah Dell, in her interpretation of the yoga yamas and niyamas, says that there's these two types of fear. One is that innate sense within us, the one that is built in us for survival. But we often also experience a fear which is one that keeps us from living. And so it's really important to understand the difference between the two. And by re-establishing this connection with ourselves, whether that be through movement, meditation, breath, or something else, really helps us to keep on living in a way that is truly supportive to us. I'm just going to close by reading you a short poem. You can live for your next vacation. When the bell rings, the after-work drinks, the warmer days, the sunnier mornings. You can live in a constant waiting for what you perceive as better times. But how many little moments are you missing that truly make up your life? Take as long as you need in this moment. And I'll just leave you by saying thank you so much for joining me.